Welcome everyone, it's the Crypto Lark, and I'm super excited to have on today Dallas Rushing. He is the CEO of Karma and dApp built on EOS. Dallas, welcome.
Lark, thank you so much for having me on, man. And as I told you before, man, I really wanted to come on your channel, and you're someone who I've been watching for a while as well for myself to get my crypto knowledge in the space. So greatly appreciate it, man. Thank you.
Well, I'm all about supporting people who are actually out there building and doing things, and you are building, you are doing, you are creating, and that's really exciting. Now, can you tell everyone out there in the audience, what is your Karma app? What do you guys do?
Yes. So Karma is a complete, it was a complete grassroots movement, right? We didn't do any ICO, we didn't raise any money, nothing like that. Totally started, grassroots. And what Karma is a decentralized application. For a lot of people, it would feel sort of like Instagram, right? You can come on, create a profile, follow your friends, post photos and videos. But the idea started with how do we incentivize people or to be able to receive incentive for doing good things in the world, positive things, or just generally sharing cool stuff that could benefit somebody in some way. So we've created that, and by simply giving somebody a like, they can earn karma from your like, or vice versa. If people like your posts, you can earn karma from their likes, and karma is cryptocurrency, as you mentioned, just like some of the other ones people are probably watching this and holding. And yeah, it's open to anybody. It's in the App Store and the Google Play Store as well right now.
That's awesome. That's awesome. So the experience from me using it is kind of a little bit like Instagram. It's kind of got that feel where you can post a short video or a picture or something like that and basically spread that out to the world. So that's good. Or you can just post a regular message or whatever as well. So the experience for a lot of users is going to be pretty familiar, but at the same time though, you are a dApp, so you are running on a blockchain. So that for a lot of users is going to be a little less familiar. So in terms of things like, with EOS, we've had these kind of CPU issues, for example. How do you make that process, I guess, more user-friendly? Like, do you have to have Karma tokens in order to use the Karma dApp?
So that was a big thing that we wanted to try to lower that barrier of entry, right? So that people didn't necessarily have to go do that. And if you look at our user base, there's all kinds of people in so many different countries who, don't just have 50 bucks to just go casually throw on some new money or some new coin that they know a little bit about, but maybe want to get involved with. So we really want to lower that barrier of entry. So you don't necessarily need Karma to initially use the app. I'll explain, why and where that comes in terms of Karma within the app. But as far as your question with EOS and CPU, so initially, yeah, totally. I mean, that was because we were, the second airdrop on EOS, and really wanting to launch our app out there in the world very quickly for people. That was something we were worried about, right? Because you'd see certain days fluctuating with these gambling dApps eating up so much CPU, and a big part of that was some of them didn't have super efficient contracts, so it was eating up a lot more CPU than was needed. It was also because EOS was so new, and some of these updates that have come since weren't rolled out there. So one thing that we've seen on CPU specifically since EOS came out was, to my understanding, the last time I saw the numbers was a 600% increase in CPU per EOS token in terms of how many transactions it would get you. So for example, if a new user came onto Karma right now, I just tested this yesterday, and they made a brand new account, they gave themselves no CPU, they could do about 14 or 15 transactions on Karma after creating their profile without needing anything. And then the idea with that is well, I mean, from that, like, they could probably earn some Karma, and if they need to get some EOS, they could do that. But we have another thing we're going to be rolling out, which is there's an organization working on EOS called CPU Emergency. Have you heard of it, Lark?
No, I haven't.
So really, really cool people in the EOS community. They, to my understanding, are just cool people who've got a lot of EOS that want to help out and support the ecosystem. So they made a link specifically for Karma on their site, and anybody who's using Karma who runs into a CPU issue can go there, put in their account name, they can get CPU delegated to them for, I believe, the next 8 to 12 hours. And if they need it again, they can go back and get it again. What we're doing right now is turning that into an API. So it's just a one-click in the app, so that if you need CPU, you just one-click it, and then you'll have the CPU delegated to you in seconds. So that should solve some of those issues, but
yeah, well, that's good that that's becoming so easy for people to get sort of more CPU powers so that they can continue to enjoy using the app. Because I'm just thinking in terms of like a real social media user, like, imagine how many times you're going to click like, how many things you're going to share. I mean, there's the thing with Instagram or Facebook or Twitter, there's zero barrier for that. I could go and post 10,000 posts on Twitter today. Spam everybody, big crazy, but I can do it, and I won't run into that CPU issue. So how do you kind of, like, I guess, get over this this onboarding process of explaining to users like, hey, there's this kind of thing going on in the background. We're going to need cryptocurrencies. You're going to need the CPU thing. Like, have you been
Yeah.
experiencing, like, have you had many non-crypto people actually downloading and using the app? And if so, what's the experience been like for them, or the feedback been like from them?
Yeah. So we've had a ton. We don't have any. There's no like formal referral program or anything like that. But we've had so many people because we have right now 40 ambassadors for Karma that are in 22 different countries.
Wow.
And so
Right.
a lot of them have gone really crazy bringing on their friends. And so we have a lot of users right now in places like Nigeria, Indonesia, South Korea, China, and Canada, and the States as well. So for example, like somebody like, my dad is using the app as well. He's not, per se a crypto user from day one, or is not, up on it in this every single day like someone like yourself or I might be. But again, it's because people don't necessarily need it right away to use the app, it does give them the ability to come on. But the hardest part in that beginning part, where reducing friction is the biggest thing we're trying to do here, is that account creation part. And so on Karma right now, technically this exact second, if someone downloaded the app, it would ask them to import their account. So they would need to have one. That's something we are about to roll out a solution for really, really soon. And I think we're actually just going to be giving free accounts to people who use our app and covering it for people. So that barrier to entry would be, a lot of those things can be curbed away with just intelligent messaging and explanations as to why and where these things, come into play. Like, here's your account name. Think of it like a Google account. You need it to access Google's dApps like Docs or Sheets. Same reason why you need an EOS account. So I think a lot of it's going to be in the education. And so someone like you who does a good job of explaining these things for people, and I'm trying to do some of that myself. That I think where a lot of that's going to come into play, making it easier. But again, at least for us on the user interface, trying to make that really, really simple. As simple as possible for people will curb out the need to know about all that stuff. I mean, ideally, we want EOS we may even support EOS inside of our wallet, inside of Karma as well for people. But we want people to not even need to know necessarily about it to be able to actually use our app, which has seemed to work pretty good so far. And just one other thing to add with that, looking at our daily transactions with our user base, roughly we see that every user does about 20. This is an average number, is about 20 to 25 transactions per day. So my thing is like, let's figure at least double that on how we can make that never an issue for people. So about 50 transactions a day, which would be some social media holics. There's some karmaholics who come on and want to use it a lot, but with what we do in the account, with what we do in the account creation part, and then delegating some resources to them, we want to try to make people have at least 50 transactions a day, which they can do in the app for free without needing to go out and get other cryptos to use it.
Yeah, well, that's how you get it easy for people, because
Yeah.
you're going to get so many people coming on, and again, they've had that easy experience other places, and look, we are doing something new. Blockchain is something new, and it should be celebrated as something new. But the reality is that people have limited time, and I mean, you got to make it so easy that my grandma can use it, right? Because she's on
Totally,
Facebook,
man.
right? And that's the idea, is that
Yep.
people will use it if they can,
Well,
especially when they realize there's incentives behind it.
Yeah, and the two things I can add to that, one of them is what you just ended on, which is incentives, and the other is people are creatures of habit. That's something a lot of people, A, don't like to discuss, and B, don't know how to navigate. But people are used to using certain things, right? So the only way that they're going to use something that's not already in their formed habits, which are extremely hard to change for people, is either offering amazing incentive that they can't find in their current habits, which is something I believe that we've done, or just making it better, right? Which is going to be a challenge for blockchain applications and teams across the whole space to make it better, because there are certain trade-offs that happen with decentralized apps versus non. But again, I think keeping those two things in mind are really the best way we have to bring people over to these newer, cooler dApps, in my opinion.
It's very cool. I mean, the incentive thing alone, I mean, that's when I first really started off, digging into crypto beyond Bitcoin, I landed on Steem, and I thought, wow, this is amazing. I can get paid for just writing posts about stuff. And look, Steem is what Steem is, right? And it's got a lot of problems. But it was still in terms of being that early use case of social media on the blockchain, it was very, very interesting.
Yep.
So definitely what
Yeah,
attracted you with the incentives?
Steam for me was a super early inspiration as well. For me, it really opened up the idea of creating these self-funding applications and utilizing inflation in a way that could be beneficial for people. Because for me, you know, I'm from the States. And obviously the States, like a lot of countries, right, we have rampant debt, and you look around the world and currencies are becoming, you know, less and less valuable because of, you know, unclear monetary policy. So to me, in a lot of ways, before I was into crypto, into people like, you know, Ron Paul or Dan Larimer's work or looking at STEEMIT, the word inflation for me was just a dirty word. But it actually, it depends, right? And so yeah, that for me was a super big inspiration looking at Steem. Of wow, this thing can actually run on its own and can create, you know, more incentive to bring, you know, more developers on and all these different things. But again, there's so many details that still have to be in the recipe for something to have success beyond, you know, initial success for something like that.
In terms of incentives, how much can somebody like realistically earn, or what's kind of like an average perhaps earnings for someone on Karma? Like, you know, let's say an average user, they're making 20, 25 posts a day. I mean, are they making like 10 cents, $2, $5?
Ooh, see, 20, 25 posts a day would be a lot of posts. The average person like is doing about 25 transactions a day. So that could be upvotes or comments or posts, anything that would be an on-chain transaction. It's hard to give an exact number on that because there's so many factors, because it depends on how many likes you get. It depends on the strength of those likes, the strength meaning the person who liked you, how much karma that they have powered up or staked for crypto people. But I can give a few examples of things that I've seen. Like so for me, I personally as a user on the app, I'm not trying to really make a lot of money on the app because I want other people to get those rewards, you know.
You mean you didn't build this app just so you can get, you know, some karma tokens for yourself?
Man, hey, down the road, I honestly, I'll use it. I like using it, but every time I get a payout or something, or I claim, I just try to sprinkle that to cool content that I do see. Awesome. But for me, I probably make 25, 30 bucks on a given day. And that's not trying very hard for me to make it. But there's other people, there's someone in our community, he's an ambassador as well. His name is Toju. He lives in Nigeria. He put a little YouTube video up. People look this up, they can find it. I think if they just search like karma rent or something like that. He actually paid his rent this last month with what he earned on karma. And he I don't know what his rent is, but he says he lives in a pretty nice place in the main city, I believe, in Nigeria. So we have people pay, you know, using it to pay real bills and real things that they have. So it all depends, right? I mean, if obviously one of the cool things that we added though, that I think was something that I really tried to we try to look at current social networks and be like, what were changes that when they were made, people were a little annoyed with, and now they just forgot about them. But they were annoyed at the time. And so one of those things was posts being in order of time, right? Remember on Instagram, everything used to be time-stamped in order. And now, and there's gives and takes, right? There's the feed where it is constantly, you know, the algorithm trying to show you what they think you want to get you to stay on and look at more ads. We have a popular feed, right? Which shows, you know, more quality content at a glance. But we have a new feed as well, and everything is in order of time. And so we wanted to not alienate the new people or newer people coming on later who don't have a following, or so that other people can see their content. And if you were to be somebody without many followers on there and you post, you'll notice you'll still get likes and upvotes. People are really trolling the new feed really hard. So it's just trying to do like you said, like not try to curb some of these things that really hurt the little guys, because down the road, you know, when we have 1 million users, someone's going to be 1,000,001, and we don't want the experience to be not good for them because they won't stay.
Well, that's what Steem kind of never got right, was the onboarding process for new users kind of really sucked, because you came in and you're nobody, you're nothing, and unless you go out and, you know, buy a whole bunch of cryptocurrency to try and be important, well, you're not going to be important. And to be able to come into a new ecosystem and feel like I'm valued here, I belong here, that's really important. And it sounds like that's what you're doing. It's like, not only do I belong here, but I can also make money. And that story about the rent, that's encouraging, because that shows you're really going in the right direction. I mean, that's the thing with Steem, for example, right? The people who were able to get in early and, you know, get to the top of the pyramid, so to speak, they have been successful. They do make 20, 30, 40, 50 bucks a day. And for some people, that's game-changing money, depending on what country you live in.
Countries like Nigeria, Indonesia, some of these countries where we have a lot of users, Nigeria, for this is the one I always remember. I believe their minimum wage is like $60 a month.
Wow.
So when you have certain people on the app, let's say they make even $10 a day, they just got a 5x raise over any opportunity nearby that they can get for a normal job. And also some of this has to do with where our market cap is as well, right? So because again the price of Karma could fluctuate depending on the market, the rewards will be more tied to US dollars if and when Karma has a larger market cap as well. So that's a factor as well. But yeah, and a big problem with Steem as well was you could like your own posts, and that always seemed pretty problematic for me.
For the power users, right? Because they can just, give myself.
Dude, if you just give yourself $100 a day, why would you not do that? I mean, so like it's curbing out things like that. Yes, to an individual who has a bunch, they're going to be like, no, I totally want that. But it's not good for 99% of other people using the app.
Exactly. You want to make a platform that's equitable, that everybody can feel welcome on, and I feel like this is where Steem kind of made the mistake that new people didn't really feel welcome. I didn't really feel welcome when I used it, and as I was struggling for so long, I was like, you know what, this is kind of crazy because I just go over to Facebook and I post stuff and I don't have to worry about any of this other stuff. But then there's the incentive. Yep. And that's obviously, it changes the economics of the platform substantially, but it's really cool. Yep. And so in terms of what people are posting on Karma, obviously the kind of the ethos behind Karma is, social media for social good kind of idea, right? So are people actually kind of sticking, because you can post anything. I could just post pictures of me eating sandwiches all day potentially and get upvoted for that, and I could be the pay for my sandwiches basically. But are people actually kind of adhering at least to an extent to that ethos? Are they posting stuff about them doing social good?
Yeah, it's like so in terms of the content, right? I mean, like you said, it's impossible because not like nor I nor anybody that's in the Karma community should be able to have the dictator decision on what kind of content can or can't be posted, right? I mean, that becomes a whole bag of problems when everyone starts saying, is this good karma? And I'm not the decider of that. I can't be that for everybody. That's impossible. So what we really tried to do was set the tone for sort of the community out of the gate, and people have expectations for what kind of content's on there. There is more content every day than I can count now of people actually going out in the community and doing something cool for somebody else or helping somebody out. There's somebody on there who created these Karma meal cards and negotiated with like a food bank, and he's giving these cards out to kids who need food. Really cool stuff like that. Yeah, super cool stuff happening. So to answer your question, yes, there's definitely tons of content that's out there like that. But I don't want to stunt the growth of Karma, because I think that that the world still needs, a social network that isn't just trying to monetize your time and use you as a product, but you get no sort of value for that in any type of way. And there's creative ways that we plan to do that for people that aren't, like a dividend or whatever, because that becomes a whole nother problem as well. But yeah, I mean, people are posting normal stuff as well, right? There's people who post, just with my buds, right? And they're with their friends hanging out. But the difference, what I've seen is even when there's posts like that, or if someone's got a sandwich or some food or whatever it is the caption is generally really cool and positive, or it's worth reading on the caption. So it all overall still is something positive and probably worth it to somebody to read that content and they get some value from it.
Do you think you're going to be able to sustain that kind of really positive community as you scale? I mean, right now you've got about 2,500 daily users, right? And that's amazing for a dApp, without a doubt. I mean, you're blowing most dApps on any blockchain out of the water, and it doesn't sound like a lot of users to people out there, but it's actually quite a few users for a decentralized application. But let's say you get up to the 100,000 or the million users, right? Let's say that Karma is going to be one of the killer dApps on EOS, and it brings all these users in. Are you worried that the community might change beneath your feet?
I think that's always a realistic thing, right? That's always a realistic possibility, and trying to contain that in some ways. There's definitely problematic ways to try to contain that we don't want to do. Some of the ways that we can curb that in some ways for greater good, and this is like, for example, an idea we're toying with is maybe like a secondary thing, right? So let's say you go to post and you have a little toggle and it says, was this post, I don't know what the exact verbiage will be, but you'd say, was this post an act of kindness or goodness, whatever it is. If you say, think this is an idea we have, maybe sort of having like decentralized group of people within the community who review that and give it a vote. This actually seemed like a post that was with good intentions and good, great. Then that post gets out there to the real world. If you don't toggle it, it just posts instantly like any normal post. But maybe having the rewards for posts that have been identified as this was something good and people, in a decentralized way reviewed that it was a good post. Maybe having more of the rewards shift towards those. Again, I think it's more about incentivizing the things you want to see than punishing the things you don't. Right. Because people will find a way around those things, as well. And there's all kind of stuff, right? There's somebody, but there's all kind of stuff. But again, I don't want to sort of try to cap that either. And there's problems that come with trying to have people review it as well, right? Because like, unless there's a clear, these 10 things count, like it sort of closes the door on creativity for the 11th idea. And we don't want to hurt that as well. So it's an ongoing thing that we want to definitely like take community ideas, and there's been some amazing ideas people have already given. But yeah, I mean, there's always a chance it could become a little more general purpose. But that's why I think even beyond the content in the app, what we're doing is really setting up a lot of the things that are going to be built on top of it, other things inside of Karma, to allocate some of the funds that those things can make back towards social good. So either way, it's still a social network for good, even if the content becomes a little more general purpose in people who post.
Yeah, and that's probably unsurprisingly inevitable that as you do onboard more users, more people are going to be posting pictures of them eating sandwiches.
There's a lot of sandwiches to be eaten, man. People are hungry. I get it.
That's right, man. It's a hungry world, man. You got to eat a lot of sandwiches. It's tough out there. But sandwiches are one thing. What about, porn or animal cruelty or other totally weird and messed up stuff that happens in the world? Yeah. Is there any kind of censorship? I mean, censorship's the wrong word, but I guess moderation in terms of taking down stuff that might be, incredibly offensive, or that might be shocking or totally inappropriate content for the platform?
Yeah, I mean, and I'll explain why. So, so for me personally, right? I mean, like and I imagine maybe like you, Lark, we both want to live in a world where there's ideally, no censorship to a certain extent, where people are free to express what they want. But the unfortunate thing, which is sort of what anyone's dealing with, our app is in the Apple Store, right? Our app is in the Google Play Store right now. We're working on a web-based app as well, that in the event that, who knows, anything could happen in the future, and you don't want to be reliant on those two entities to still be okay with you, right? That's always a possibility that they may not if they're threatened in some way. So we got to prepare for that, which is why we're making the web app for it. So just as a result of being in the App Store and the Google Play Store, there are rules you have to follow, especially being a platform where people upload their own content. And something like porn, something like some other things you mentioned are, absolutely things that we want to try to curb out of the app as much as possible, and eliminate those as fast as possible. So people can report posts that are on there, and then those reports will then get funneled to somewhere where they'll be, reviewed. And if they are, but we want those guidelines to be very clear. I don't want, like, if somebody has a political view that's not the same as him, I don't care. And I don't think anybody should care. You should never be banned for something like that. But if it's like physically threatening, or it's a graphic, violence type of stuff, then you got to do something about that. And that's only, because we need to abide to a certain extent by some of the guidelines of Apple and Google, if the app's available for people on their devices in that way.
Yeah, well, it's important to make the environment friendly for everybody, basically. And
yeah.
Do you remember Chat Roulette?
I do remember Chat Roulette. I got
Great
some Chat
idea,
Roulette
and
stories
it just became
too, man.
a bunch of dudes, dick pics, or their sausages on video, and that's
about 50% of Chat Roulette. Yeah, we were more surprised when that wasn't what we found on hitting next. We were more excited to see real people with their clothes on. Yeah.
Oh my God, you're a person. You're not a penis. This is amazing. Yeah, but that really shows the reason why it is important, because it's the internet, man. It's the internet. There's always going to be these weird people out there that feel the need to do these things. So it's a really tough balance to walk. It's like you said, because it's like, well, on the one hand, we want to, take offensive things out, but we don't want to, like, censor political views, for example, or if someone wants to get on there and say the earth is flat, well, I mean, rock out, dude. You do you, right?
Yeah. Well, I mean, if there was a way to, and this is maybe an idea to think about, maybe if there was some way to, like condense the freaks into one ecosystem so only they'll see the same stuff, then it's not as harmful for other people. And you know, they still got to get their freak on either way, right? If that's what people are into. But maybe Karma's not the app for those people.
Maybe you do like Karma for freaks.
Yeah. Yeah, it's written in lowercase, tiny letters. Yeah, the A is an X. Yeah, but yeah, no, but totally. I mean, that's something I think anyone's gonna have to deal with when you want to have your app be available in app stores. You know, it just is that way. And like you said, I mean, I want someone who's 16 to be able to feel like they can use Karma and not get freaked out and see something crazy. Or I mean, at the end of the day, it's impossible to. I mean, you put your stuff on YouTube. I put my stuff on YouTube, Instagram as well. We both, I'm sure, post on there. They don't catch and there's still porn on Twitter today, every day. It's impossible to catch everything, but it's just about acting efficiently and quickly and fairly and transparently when those things arise to try to curb them.
That's right. It's about actually having systems in place, right? Now, in terms of those giant social medias, right? I mean, how many users does Instagram have? Probably a couple 100 million or something. I can only imagine.
Yeah, I think like about almost a billion, between 700 million and a billion. That's on a given time frame.
Quite a few compared to 2,500 where we're at right now. So, how do you intend to scale? What is the vision? How do you get to being the new Instagram? How do you get to be that popular? Do you think it's possible?
Yeah, absolutely. And so, a couple of the things we sort of said earlier, right? Which were incentive. And then making it as good or better, or as some people say, one of the smartest people I know told me this. He said, different is better than better. And I think that that's true for Karma in a lot of ways. But as far as our plan, right? I mean, we don't have, I can explain some things, right? That are in the near future, right? So as I mentioned, making that onboarding process extremely easy so that there's no friction for people. That's a huge part, right? I think the incentives that people can earn inside of Karma are something that if Facebook and Instagram were to implement that, it's hard in a lot of ways. One, they have shareholders, right? And when you're a shareholder and you're used to the $40 billion in ad revenue going directly to you in some extent, and everyone's, you know, just happy with the way things are, there's not a lot of incentive for those people to want to vote to change that and incorporate some, you know, some risky crypto that may or may not damage shares for those companies, right? So I think that's not something we worry about in the short, medium term of those platforms adding something. And either way, I think we got something different going ourselves. But beyond that, as far as reaching people, right? So there's no secret. Most of the world is not in crypto. Most of the people in the world don't hold any crypto, right? And they don't know much besides Bitcoin, and even that they don't know what Bitcoin is. So those people are out there right now. And one of the most effective things that I did, because I had a digital marketing company for the last few years, and I would help make brands for other people and myself and other different e-commerce, all kinds of stuff that I did. One of the biggest things I think that is still undervalued and will always be valuable in a lot of ways is influencer marketing, right? So you're an influencer, right? You've got an audience who may, see something like Karma valuable, so I'm on here talking to you, right? But there's a lot of people who aren't in crypto who are YouTubers that we've been discussions with that really like Karma, want to share it as soon as that onboarding is super easy, so that people don't hit any hiccups joining. So we want to really talk with a lot of YouTubers and people who have big audiences that want. I just dropped my chair, Lark.
Oh no, my God.
Crazy. All right. I was playing footsies with the chair. My bad. So I think that's a big part, man, is going after these influencers who have large audiences who really would like the mission of Karma and feel it would be valuable to share it with their audiences. And we've got a ton that are ready to go. We're just waiting a little bit longer until this easy onboarding process is rolled out. But I'm already testing it on my phone now. We're just working out some kinks to make sure it's all good.
Yeah, well, that's the last thing you want is people to come in and have a bad experience because they're probably not going to come back. And that's really important to make sure that when they do. For the cryptoholics, we can deal with some whatever, let's say tribulations as we go through it because it's like, it's crypto. I expect, I've ran out of CPU. Okay, let me get some more EOS. So just, 15 minutes later, back on the app, right? But for most people, that's not the experience they want, right? So the easy onboarding process is going to be so key, I think, really to the long-term success of Karma. But I like the focus on that kind of marketing as well because it's word of mouth, right? basically,
Yep.
is what it is what comes down to influencer
Yeah,
marketing.
I mean, look, we could run Facebook and Instagram ads, double target, retarget, cross target people, and there may be maybe that's going to be a good strategy. I think it's worth testing everything, right? When we're in the phase we're at in crypto right now. Um, but totally, I mean, like in this channel, they who are consistent, like they like what you say, right? And they trust that you're going to put people on who, you know, that are vetted in your opinion, or maybe have something that you think is cool too. And if you think it's cool, generally your audience has a good chance of thinking it's cool also. So we think it's a super good approach as well. Something I wanted to add, Lark, when you mentioned earlier, sort of about the where Karma's at in terms of how many users we have compared with other dApps. This is something somebody shared with me the other day I was looking at. You've seen Blocktivity, right? Have you used that site before?
Yeah.
Okay, so for Karma, right? Roughly, we've been averaging last few days over 40,000, 45,000 transactions a day.
Wow.
Or roughly, depending on the day, 50 something, 52 has been our highest. And again, not all transactions are created equal. Some are different than others, but either way, a transaction is still a moment in time when one party wanted to initiate an action, and then it interacted with a contract, and then it was pushed to the chain. So the nature of those are still different from each other, right? But looking on Blocktivity, this is kind of crazy to look at. Karma does more daily transactions than Ethereum Classic, does more daily transactions than Bitcoin Cash, more than Litecoin, more than Dash, more than Monero, Zcash, and VeChain.
That's crazy.
In any given day, which is crazy. That I didn't even realize that until a few week and a half ago or something like that. I thought that was wild and probably worth sharing with the people.
Yeah, well, I mean, it's interesting because obviously it's a social media, right? So people are liking posts, and that's a transaction. When you click that like button, it's registered, and that needs scalability, which is of course why you have to go with something like EOS, right? In terms of like Litecoin or something, you're just sending money back and forth, right? There is no you don't really have that functionality on top of Litecoin. I mean, some small extent, but in terms of building something like Karma, wouldn't really work, right? So,
no, definitely not on something like Ethereum. I mean, it's just not possible. I mean, is it possible to make it? Yeah, definitely, right? But is it impossible to get any traction and have any chance at bringing in people to use it? I think it's impossible, right? I mean, how could you convince someone to stop using Facebook or Instagram and use something where they got to pay every time they do anything?
Every time, that's right. And because the more popular it gets, the more they have to pay. I mean, look what happened with CryptoKitties, right? that one dApp brought Ethereum to its knees, and that just speaks to the need for Ethereum to scale. But EOS is doing today what Ethereum needs to do at some point. It is actually providing those transactions, and look, EOS is still experimental, like so much of the cryptocurrency world is. But those experiments are being done, those conversations are being had, and it's moving forward. So stuff like the CPU issues, like that's early growing pain kind of stuff. Like that will be worked out over time.
Yeah, and I would say in a lot of ways it's been worked out a tremendous amount since the initial problems, right? As I mentioned, it's increased like 600%. And so I know making a new account in the beginning, I think people on Karma with a brand new account, nothing staked, could probably do like 2 or 3 transactions, right? But now they can do like 15, right? Without needing anything. And I think the one thing about EOS that maybe some of your audience may or may not know is, and what I think is, I want to tell people, like, I'm blockchain agnostic in a lot of ways, right? I'm not romantic about EOS because Karma's on it, or I like EOS, or I hold EOS. But my thing is, I don't care which one it is, right? If something comes out in a week from now that can provide things that EOS cannot do, that are better and are going to be able to provide things in the world that we all want blockchain to do, then I'm on that, and that's got my attention as well. I could care less. Ethereum was the first thing I bought. And it will not be the last thing I buy, I'm sure. But when you look at EOS, right? I mean, look at the way, since its launch, like you said, it's experimental, like everything is. Karma included is experimental. But since it's launched, when on any of these proof of work chains or different things that are existing have been in the ecosystem, when have we seen a 600% increase on performance over a couple months, right? I mean, that's not something normal for crypto. To my understanding, and it's because of the way EOS was built from the beginning, and the fact that it is flexible, for new ideas to be thought of and then implemented, and then a reality for people to use. And I think for me, that's one thing that really has made me very optimistic about EOS, because I've seen it firsthand, right? Where I've seen someone come up with an idea, people discuss it. A lot of people thought it was a great idea. Then it got added, and then now it's something part of how we all use EOS every day on a lot of the apps like Token Pocket or Meet.one or EOS Links. And so that's something I'm excited about, looking at EOS as a platform compared with other ones. I think to be honest, like Lark, between you and I, there's so much FUD out there about it, right? And there's definitely been little hiccups along the way, totally, right? That are, but it's interesting to see what was the actual negative effect of those hiccups. Did anyone lose money? Did anyone get robbed? Did we have to roll back the chain? No, right? So I think in a lot of ways, I think a lot of people in crypto, existing people, are rooting for it to fail, which bums me out a little bit. Because I think crypto generally, I think people should be open to whatever, right? I think
and supporting each other.
Yeah, and if you were a Bitcoin maximalist all the way, you would have missed Ethereum and everything that came from that, and then EOS, and then Tron, and all these different things that you cover on your channel, because you're open-minded to cover these new things when they come out.
It's really important to have those conversations too, because I've talked about EOS plenty on the show, and sometimes I do talk about the CPU issues and stuff like that. People, oh, you're fudding, and like, no, this. You need to have the conversations. You need to be open and honest about what's actually going on. Otherwise, nothing ever gets better if you don't have these conversations. And it's really important to put that stuff out there and say, hey, you know what? This is a problem we're currently having. How do we, as a community, think around that problem, and how do we move it forward? And that's important to do.
Totally. And I think, like with all these things, everything has caveats. Everything is, relatively speaking, there's always the details are what's important in all these conversations. And like you mentioned, CPU. Right now, is it still a problem? It's only a problem, I'd say, because it's something that people have identified and they're working on to make it better, right? But relatively speaking, for me, comparing something like EOS with, name your chain, to me, that CPU issue is almost a non-issue for me, because if let's say I do have a smaller account and I'm like, I need a little more CPU, and I go get more EOS, I still have that EOS at the end of the day, right? But on something like Ethereum or Bitcoin or Litecoin, any of these things we can name, you're constantly losing what you have to use it, right? If you and I keep sending each other $100 back and forth on ETH, eventually ETH takes our money. It's kind of like a casino where if we keep playing long enough, the rake cleans everybody out, Whereas on EOS, we still have our money. I could send you 100, you send me 100, I send you 100, and we still got it. No, there's no value lost that direct way to the network.
That's right. The only way that value might be quote unquote lost to be through inflation, but that really depends on whether or not you see EOS becoming incredibly popular. Because if EOS does become incredibly popular, then the inflation issue doesn't really become so serious at that point. So
but if you look again, this is not a Ethereum's bad rant from me. I don't want this to be that
Ethereum,
but it's I think a real combo, right? Because I think a lot of people look at them as direct competitors, and I think these are just undeniable points to bring, right? And what was the last thing you said? I apologize.
Don't know. But,
you mentioned you mentioned about the fees, right? So the thing with Ethereum, right, and the inflation. So Ethereum has inflation too. It just inflates a lot more annually, and you pay a fee. So there's a double tax, right? So, in a lot of ways, one's better than two. And even Bitcoin, right? I mean, if Bitcoin, I know people say the supply is what it is, which is true, right? We all know what the max supply is supposed to be when it reaches that. But either way, I mean, Bitcoin, the supply, there's still more Bitcoin being created and put into the open market every day for the next 100+ years. And if you and I are both, AI robots with robot legs, then we'll be here to see that, right? But either way, it's still an inflated currency with fees, right? We're both, not saying it's EOS versus those two, they're completely different. But I think an important thing to note, nonetheless, a lot of people tend to look at those as if they don't have inflation, but they totally do.
Well, and I think the important thing to keep in mind here is that there's no one chain to rule them all, and Bitcoin maximalists might argue that no, there is one chain to rule them all, and it's Bitcoin. But honestly, you look at what EOS is doing with dApps, for example, and that's a strong, evident use case in terms of making it easy for people to use. Whereas with Ethereum, even when Ethereum scales, maybe then we just move into a situation where Ethereum is doing security tokens and government level whatever, right? And there's just different use cases, so EOS doesn't have to be Ethereum, and EOS doesn't have to be Bitcoin. it can just be EOS.
Yeah, and I think that's something I think in the community, you know, as somebody who's tries to be pretty active in the community, I think that that's something EOS people view. Don't get me wrong; it's always fun to have competition and people say Cardano, you know, whatever goes. Conversations go on in the EOS community, but generally speaking, no one talks about price. And people could care less about a bear market. People in EOS seem to be really focused on just making come to crypto yet, but we're just starting to see some of them roll out now.
Very, very cool. Dallas, we're going to go ahead and finish this chat up, but it's been super interesting. For anybody who wants to check out the Karma app, there'll be a link down below. You can find me over there on Karma, you know, eating sandwiches, I guess. So if you'd like to follow me over there, guys, that'd be super awesome. But definitely check the app out. It's a lot of fun to use. It's got a great user experience, something like, you know, using Instagram, but it's blockchain, it's crypto, and you can make crypto by posting over there, which is super awesome. So I'd encourage everyone to go ahead and check it out. And Dallas, thank you so much for your time today, coming on the show and telling everyone a bit about Karma and a bit about EOS.
Yeah, Lark, man, again, thank you so much for having me on. This was something I've been looking forward to, really excited to chat with you and your audience. If you'd ever like to come on my channel and have a longer talk on there, I'm more than happy to have you on, man. Let me know.
For sure. We'll do it one of these days. Thank you so much.
Awesome. Thank you, Lark.